What I'm about to say will shock and pain you, but this needs to be told because for long it hasn't been spoken about. The statement is from Judge Peter Rook's 2013 sentencing of Mohammad Karar in the town of Oxford. It says Mohammad Karar prepared his victim for gang rape by 5 or 6 men by using a pump. At one point, she had 4 men inside her and a red ball was placed in her mouth to keep her quiet. The United Kingdom and its Prime Minister Keir Starmer are in the middle of a massive controversy, an expose that billionaire Elon Musk has brought centre stage. Musk has accused UK's Prime Minister Keir Starmer of failing to curb the menace of gangs that groomed young girls and sexually exploited them. Grooming here means befriending young girls, making them feel that sexually exploiting them isn't wrong. The men, the rapists, are largely believed to be Pakistani. Now, Elon Musk even called for the country's safeguarding minister, Jess Phillips, to be jailed after she refused to sanction a government inquiry into the history of child abuse in the town of Oldham. Not just Oldham, cases have been found in Telford, Bristol and other towns and cities of UK. As per data released by the police, out of 1.15 lakh sexual offences against children reported in 2023, about 4,228, which is 3.7%, were group-based crimes. These gang rapes have been going on in the UK for several years. According to a 2014 report, more than 1,400 children were sexually abused between 1997 and 2013 in Rotherham, the place from where these grooming cases first emerged. What's even more troublesome is that in most cases, the cover-up was allegedly done on part of the police and the government. In her 2014 report, Professor Alexis J. has stated that authorities described their nervousness about identifying the ethnic origins of perpetrators for fear of being thought racist. Others remembered clear direction from their managers not to do so. Now, amid all of these accusations, Prime Minister Starmer has defended his government and accused Elon Musk of election interference. In fact, EU leaders Emmanuel Macron and Olaf Scholz have also reiterated Starmer's words. To talk more on this, on the broadcast, I'm joined by Mr. David Atherton, journalist and broadcaster in the UK. Mr. David Sofair, Republican strategist, joins us from the United States. And Professor Madhav Nalapat, geopolitical expert, is also joining us. Good evening and namaskar to all of you. David Atherton, to you first. Between the safety of your children and coming across as an inclusive country, I don't think the choice would have been as hard as it's made out to be in the UK for several years.
Well, you mentioned several years. Try 30. The first grooming case that's ever been dug up was from 1973. And let me first of all say that the first victims were actually Indian people who were Indian Sikhs. About 96% of the victims are white English girls, and about 4% are actually Sikh girls as well, Sikh heritage girls, I should say. The figure, to give you the sheer scale of the abuse that went on, the MP for Rotherham, Sarah Champion, still currently the MP for the town, reckons about 1 million girls, which I think is something like, if you sort of work that out to Indian figures, it's something like 20 million girls or something like that per capita of the population. My feeling is it's near 500,000 over 30 years. And yes, there was cover-ups from the most nasty were actually the councillors who ran the local authorities, the social workers and the police who refused point blank to interview cases of paedophilia. They're absolute disgrace to our country, and the most disgusting thing has happened in Britain for many a year. And this will not go away. And I'll tell you something, Starmer is in serious trouble over this. This has been in the news now for over a week. There's a story that won't go away, as exemplified by your programme today. But yeah, appalling situation in Britain, and it's to our shame that we were too scared to face the Muslims down, the Pakistanis down. I'll tell you this as well. One of the main reasons most of these towns, 50 different towns, grooming has been identified, and most of them overwhelmingly are Labour Party councillors and councils, I should say. And one of their reasons for keeping it quiet was something like 70 to 80% of Muslims vote for the Labour Party. They were quite happy to throw white and Sikh girls under the bus so they could keep their council seats and MP seats. Absolutely disgusting and depraved.
Absolutely. This is hugely appalling and disgusting, but also, David, you know, I understand this. This is right now against the Labour Party. This is against Keir Starmer. But in the past, even the Conservatives have been the same. They also rejected a public inquiry into these grooming gangs, these rapist gangs who were sexually exploiting young girls. So even though today they are blaming the Labour Party, they are blaming Keir Starmer, the fact of the matter is that no political party in the UK was willing to have a public inquiry into this absolutely horrific case.
Well, indeed, absolutely. The Conservative Party is not, I wouldn't say equally as bad, but they certainly haven't been up to scratch in dealing with the situation. One of the main reasons why, and this is very few people will say this, if Muslims and non-Muslims in this country were treated equally, it's called in Britain two-tier policing. They know that the Muslim community will become aggressive and there will be civil unrest. A lot of these Pakistani grooming gangs are basically gangsters who are also involved in drug dealing, extortion, and generally being nasty people who enforce their will in the communities. So something like 20% of Pakistani heritage men in Telford, which is in the West Midlands, 20% were involved in raping underage girls. That is the extent of the problem, and the people who were finally convicted and jailed for those offences were in fact local gangsters. The British population of the government is being intimidated by the Muslim Pakistani gangs in this country.
Yeah. Professor Nalapat, do you want to come in on this? A lot of people are angered by it, but they're also outraged with the fact that, there was a systematic cover-up of coming across as politically correct, of trying to not go against Pakistani origin men, of trying to sound not racist, and therefore putting the safety of young girls at risk day after day.
Shreya, I would like to request all those British Asians who are not Pakistani. There are also a handful of Bangladeshis in this crowd of rapists, but almost all of them are Pakistani. Those who are not Pakistani, and of course, those perhaps you can include Bangladesh now in the mix, but all other British Asians should have a libel case, a collective libel case against the UK government. This is libel, and libel has been going on from the Conservative Party to the Labour Party to the Conservatives to Labour. They call them Asian gangs. Are they Laotian? Are they Cambodian? Are they Saudi Arab? Are they Iraqi? Are they Indian?
Yeah.
Are they Sri Lankan? No. They're Pakistani almost overwhelmingly, with a handful of Bangladeshis among them. And I think this is really defaming an entire community, especially the Indian British community, which frankly is a very well-behaved community. The minimum number of police cases are against this community, very high levels of professional achievement and per capita income. And now let me just add to this, Shreya. I've studied this for several decades. And the reality situation is, what do these people do? They search for vulnerable girls from single families, single parent families, where the parent allegedly looking after them has got drug problems or alcohol problems. And then they talk to the girls try in a fatherly way. And then what happens is that they arrange some kind of a mock marriage or something, some of these impressionable girls, or they don't. And then afterwards, what they do, they basically drug them, give them alcohol, in the pretense of being, generous to them and agreeing
Yeah.
to what they're agreeing to. And then there is gang rape. This kind of thing has been going on in the UK. I'm told is now going on in parts of Canada as well. I haven't checked that out, but the UK has been going on for decades. And it's an utter disgrace to a democracy. And as for the Conservative Party, the less said about
Yeah.
it, the better. Today, Reform Party has got more members than the Conservative Party. The Conservative Party, frankly, is choking on its own sins. And as for Labour, Keir Starmer can be politically correct or he can be correct. In this case, he may be politically correct, looking at it in a very, very odd way, but he is not correct. And I'd like to say about Elon Musk, I think he has done a favor to all British women who would like to avoid this kind of horrible thing happening to them or to their sisters or to their children
Okay.
or to their parents. Because what happened to these girls?
Yeah.
So
Let
I've
me get in
studied this
David
in
Sofair
detail.
into this, Professor Nalapat.
They completely become
Yeah. Yeah.
asocial. They become
absolutely.
misfits. Many of them develop
Yeah.
psychological problems. They're
Yeah,
traumatized
Professor
for life.
Nalapat, let me get in David Sofair into
Yeah,
this
absolutely.
discussion.
Absolutely,
David
yes.
Sofair, Elon Musk is being accused of election interference by President Emmanuel Macron. You've got Olaf Scholz. You've got also the Norwegian leader accusing Elon Musk of election interference in this entire controversy.
Well, absolutely. Well, here's the thing. We do not have, there is no election in the UK at the moment, right? So, and what's happened is really, you can say that what happened in the UK was under Conservative rule, but that's not the case. What happened was, let's face it, these atrocities happened in Labour strongholds. So let's be very clear about that. Keir Starmer was the chief prosecutor during that time. So he needs to take accountability for all of that. Why was the inquest sealed for such a long time? He was in charge of the prosecution, and this is a travesty of justice. And if you look at it, and if you peel it back, it's come in Labour-centric areas. And it's not acceptable. A full inquest should be there. There's no election in the UK at the moment, and it's just not it's not even a fair thing. So the other deal is that the Labour Party needs to stop doing these soft on crime things. It doesn't work. This should never happen in the first place. It certainly does not happen in an organized scale in the United States. We're proud to say that.
David Atherton, one of the things that, of course, Elon Musk is saying that Keir Starmer should be jailed, Jess Phillips should be jailed as well. But what's the sentiment there in the UK? What do people think of how Elon Musk has been taking this and bringing it to the center stage? How, he's been constantly over it online. He's been constantly tweeting about it. David Atherton.
Well, what perfect timing of your question. There's a TV program on ITV called Good Morning Britain. They did a poll: should Elon Musk be involved in British politics? And 65.8% of people said yes. In fact, Elon Musk quote tweeted me on that today, this morning, first thing. So he's got about something like 8 million views. So something like there was 42,000 votes cast in that poll. And virtually nearly two-thirds of people wanted Elon Musk to be involved particularly the grooming gang scandal, and also British politics as well. We live, I think in America they call it the deep state. We call it the blob, and whereby we have governments that do not represent our views, who do not govern how we want them to be governed. We're the populists. And I think Elon Musk is speaking for literally millions of voters in America and Britain throughout the rest of the world, for those whose voices are unheard. And the way that Starmer dismissed everybody who wanted an inquiry as being a far-right fascist Nazi thug was absolutely disgraceful. And that's going to seriously blow up in his face. He will regret that, and he will pay the price for it. I really can't see Starmer lasting more than 6 months to a year as Prime Minister. I think he will be going very soon.
Can I also then ask you, David Atherton, what's the general perception? Because a lot of people think that since this grooming gang scandal has come to the fore, the entire perception of the left liberals being inclusive, being liberals in the truest sense, has really gone for a toss. It's been completely shattered with the fact that they've put the safety of young girls and children at risk just to sound politically correct and not to sound racist, and to prevent any riots from happening. I mean, are these the kind of things that should even come to your mind when you have something absolutely disgusting and horrific as children being raped?
Well, indeed, this is the whole point about the middle classes in this country, or the liberal left middle classes. You get the impression their mindset is that it's worse to be far right than is the rape of a young girl. The liberal left have caught up with the story, but they're not commenting on the pain of the victims. They're talking about the language that people are using, and they're criticising the people who are actually bringing this to the fore. And I've said this many a time: the enemy of white working class women. The enemy of white working class girls and women is white middle class women as well. I've seen the most appalling comments from some of the commentators, whereby they have absolutely zero empathy for them, zero sympathy. As was summed up once by somebody who liked and retweeted a tweet which said, these girls should shut their mouths for the good of diversity. The visceral, nasty reaction is that bad, I'm afraid.
Okay, Professor Nalapat, with this entire horrific case coming to the fore, there are also calls for immigrants to be filtered in the UK, and how Europe should actually have a better immigration policy. Do you think Europe has some sort of regret, perhaps, with the kind of inclusive immigration that it has talked of all these years? First, they, of course, needed people to come and stabilize their economy, but now they're also seeing the downside of it?
Shreya, do you or any of us want to stay in a neighborhood where you have these grooming gangs operate? I'm sure not. The fact of the matter is, to say that you're afraid of violence and not take adequate action on the part of the police. I'm reminded of a case involving a state government which went to Supreme Court. And Supreme Court judgment was, then get out of power. Cede power. Have a fresh election. If you can't enforce the law, there's no point in your being the government. And that is my comment to both Conservatives and Labour. What point is there in your being government if you say you're scared of violence? Then you'll be scared of murderers, rapists, thugs, narcotics people. And you know what's happening in Canada.
Yeah.
These people are taking over Canada. And that's why Justin Trudeau was forced to go. So I would say, Shreya, it's a ridiculous argument to say that you are afraid of violence and therefore we're not taking police action. If you take strong action, believe me, that's the way to stop violence. And just tolerating this action is a way of spreading this violence and continuing it so that countless young girls are ruined for the rest of their lives. They become drunkards, drug addicts, misfits, psychological problems. Countless young girls, Shreya, because the government say, oh, sorry, we're scared of these people. We don't want the police to be hurt. Well, I mean, shame on you.
It's more than that. It's a lot more than that.
All right. We'll leave it there. We will leave it there, but I hope As J.K. Rowling said, we will have to do something about it. And for starters, let's call them rapist gangs and not grooming gangs. Let's improve our nomenclature. And as Professor Nalapat said, they are Pakistani and Bangladeshi men. They're not Asian men because Asia involves a lot of other countries as well. And we're not doing any of that. We'll leave it there. David Atherton, David Sofair and Professor Madhav Nalapat, thank you all of you, gentlemen, for joining us on Global Mirror and sharing your perspectives. With that, ladies and gentlemen, it's a wrap on Global Mirror. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. Goodbye. Up next is Neha Koshi with Beyond the Mirror. Beyond the headline. Beg your pardon.